Hey boys, it's HarmNone. Today, I'm going to be ranking every single vehicle from the Bottom Dollar Bounties DLC in Grand Theft Auto Online. Now overall, this DLC, I gotta say, it was a little bit mid, and I feel like some of the car picks the Rockstar decided to add with this one were not super ideal. However, some of the vehicles turned out to be pretty cool. So anyways, we're going to be ranking them in this video. They're going to be ranked based on how useful they are, how good of a deal they are based on the price, are they budget friendly, and how well do they do performance wise. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started with this ranking. But before we get into the video, of course, I must remind everybody, as usual with all of my ranking videos, this list is 100% factual and cannot be argued with. So if you disagree, just understand that you are simply wrong. So if you can accept this, we can go ahead and get into the video. But before we do, drop a like if you enjoy, dislike if you don't, of course. Consider subscribing to my channel if you guys are new. Let's get started with the worst vehicle from the DLC. And the worst vehicle from the DLC is, of course, the Pizza Boy, costing $195,000 without the trade price and $160,000 with the trade price. Now, the thing that I don't like about the Pizza Boy is that you don't need it to be able to do the pizza business, which I think is something that Rockstar tries to trick players into. I think they try to trick you into thinking you need these vehicles, similar to like the taxi on Warstock, thinking you need it to be able to do the taxi business, which of course is not true. So this is a tactic that they use, I think, to trick players into buying things, and the Pizza Boy, you do not need to own it. It's an okay, it's not even really okay, it's a vehicle, you know, it's a vehicle type of thing. But yeah, I don't have much else to say about it. It's so slow, and it's got the cool Pizza This logo on it, but beyond that, yeah, don't buy it, please, for the love of God. Next up at number 16, we get the Bail Enforcement Burrito. Now, this comes with the purchase of a bail office, and it does have an armor upgrade that makes it able to take 4 RPGs, which is not bad in that regard, but it is so slow and useless that there's really no point in driving it, especially when other vehicles like the Night Shark exist that can take double the amount of RPGs and that go fast and have customization and things like that. Now, the Bail Enforcement Burrito is ranked so low, despite it being quote-unquote free. It's ranked this low because, of course, you have to buy a bail enforcement office, which is kind of not the best business of all time. It's fun, it's cool, it's something a little bit different and unique, but it's definitely not a good deal, that's for sure. So that's it for the Bail Enforcement Burrito. On to number 15. And next up at number 15, we have a police car, and it is, of course, the Declassy Impaler LX Cruiser, costing $3,600,000 with the trade price and $4,800,000 without the trade price. This thing is trash, and it's really overpriced for what it is. In fact, the Vapid Stainier LE Cruiser and even the unmarked Cruiser, I believe, are faster than this thing, and both of those cost way less than the Impaler LX Cruiser. So that's really annoying. The Impaler LX Cruiser, like, it handles decently, it's got like okay performance, but just for the cost of it, it just doesn't make sense to buy this one, especially over some of the other police cars that we got with this DLC that are right in the same neighborhood in terms of price. The Impaler LX just doesn't do it for me. I don't like the Impaler LX as it is, as I'm sure many of you know and will comment about. But yeah, the LX Cruiser, just not a very good vehicle, especially for the money. Next up, we got the Bravado Greenwood Cruiser, costing $3,682,500 or $4,910,000 for the non-trade price. The Greenwood Cruiser is significantly better than the Impaler LX Cruiser, I would say. It's just got a wider stance, it has better handling, better straight line performance. In fact, the Greenwood Cruiser's straight line performance is almost the best out of all the new police cars that we got with this update, except for the Dominator FX Cruiser. And over the course of the airport, it will almost get the Impaler SC Cruiser, but just not quite. It's a pretty good vehicle. It's got the basically same customization as the regular Bravado Greenwood, but just in police car form. Overall, it's still overpriced and still kind of trash for the money, but it is significantly better than the Impaler LX Cruiser, I would say. Next up at number 13, we got another police car, the Bravado Dorado Cruiser, costing $3,753,750 for the trade price. If you don't have it, it's going to be $5,005,000. This is by far the best police car for off-road. In terms of PC, Xbox One, and PS4, this thing's basically your only option for going off-road with a police car. It's the only all-wheel drive police car on those platforms. However, if you do play on new gen Xbox Series S or X or PS5, you do of course get access to the Granger Park Ranger, but it's still not that great, and I still think the Dorado is a better option for off-roading, although the Granger is significantly cheaper, so that is something to keep in mind. But the Dorado Cruiser is actually pretty fun. I think it's pretty awesome. It's probably my favorite police car from this update, but factually it's just not the best. It still is really good. It's still really cool. For off-roading, you can't go wrong with having it. I think it's a cool car, but yeah, it gets 13 for sure because it's just not the best. Next up at number 12, we got the Impaler SZ Cruiser, costing $3,540,000 to $4,720,000. Now this is the fastest four-door police car in GTA Online, and the cost for this one really makes the Greenwood and the LX seem like the dumbest purchases ever, because this is cheaper than both of those cars and outperforms both of them. However, the trade-off is that the Impaler SZ Cruiser looks worse than both of the other vehicles, and not by a little bit. I think this thing looks pretty horrible. In fact, I don't like this car at all. I don't like the regular Impaler SZ, but the Cruiser is just as bad. It's really ugly looking. I'm not a fan of it. I know a lot of people are going to say, but it's based on this car from real life. Okay, that car's ugly too, man. Like shit, I don't know. Yeah, it's classic, whatever. You can like it all you want. It doesn't matter because it's still ugly. Not gonna lie. So there you have it. That's it for the Impaler SZ Cruiser. It's quite quick, but yeah, it's ugly as sin for sure. Now at number 11, the best police car out of the police cars that we got with this update is of course the Vapid Dominator FX Interceptor, costing $3,712,500 if you have the trade price, or $4,950,000 if you do not have the trade price. Now this thing is almost as quick as the Gauntlet Interceptor, but it is a little bit cheaper as well. So the trade-off is kind of there depending on how much money you have. This might be something that you're more so interested in than the Gauntlet Interceptor. It is also a little bit smaller and lighter than the Gauntlet Interceptor, so depending on how you like your vehicles to drive, this might be the better option for you. Overall, I would say the Gauntlet Interceptor is generally better, but for the difference in cost, this is a very, very close second to that Gauntlet Interceptor, so do keep that in mind. The FX Interceptor though is a really cool car. It's obviously based off the Fox Body Mustang, and it's just the police variant of it. I think it's pretty neat. I can't necessarily say I'd recommend buying it, but you know, it's a cool vehicle. Next up at number 10, finally getting into some regular vehicles that are not police cars, we have the Declasse Yosemite 1500 up next, costing $1,205,000, and for that price, I feel like this thing is actually a bit of a steal because it is actually a really good off-road class vehicle. Now, my biggest gripe with the 1500 is that the wheels are tucked into the fender lines, and there's nothing you can do about that. And that's a gripe I have with a lot of vehicles in GTA Online, but on this one in particular, I feel like it's really, really annoying because I would like to poke those wheels out a little bit. The customization for this thing is also a little bit confusing because it's got some really insane front and rear bumper options, but like nothing for the side. It's got like some steps and stuff, but not that you should be able to do like some crazy stuff to it, but I feel like the side skirt sort of side step options were a little bit weak. I also feel like they could have given us like some headache rack options for it and stuff like that too, which would have been really, really cool. But unfortunately, Rockstar elected to not do that. However, performance-wise, I think this thing is actually really, really good. It's great in the off-road category. Definitely one of the better vehicles, I would say. Not the best. It's nowhere near the Draugr, I would say, but it's kind of in the same neighborhood as, you know, things like the Camacho, the Cara 4x4, stuff like that. You know, it's up there, but it's not the fastest ever, that's for sure. Still a cool vehicle. For $1,205,000, you kind of can't really go wrong with it, in my opinion. Next up at number 9, we have the Balakan Envisage, costing $2,472,000. Now I must say, this vehicle is actually fun enough to drive, and it's also electric, so it's not going to be the greatest car ever, but being that it is electric, I will say the handling is actually quite good, and it's rear-wheel drive, which is kind of different for electric cars. A lot of them are all-wheel drive, so this is kind of nice to see. The Envisage also has some really great customization. I really enjoy the customization on this vehicle. I think it's really cool looking. It is based off of the Hyundai Envision from real life, I do believe. And it does have Imani tech, but the sin of it is that it has no armor plating to go with. If this thing had armor plating, it would easily be one of like the top 5 best cars from this DLC, but no armor plating is pretty bad. And the other real issue that I have with the Envisage is the price of this thing is just insane. $2,472,000 is a lot of money for a vehicle that just has Imani tech and nothing else for it. It's not even the fastest sports car in the game. It's, you know, the customization's great, but for that price, I don't know. It should have done a little more. It should have been a little faster, and it should have probably had the ability to put that armor plating on with the Imani tech, I would say. Next up at number 8, we have the Invitero Coquette D1, costing $1,500,000, which I feel like is actually a pretty reasonable price, all things considered. I must actually say, I think that Rockstar was relatively reasonable with the pricing for the vehicles from this DLC, I will just say. This thing is a cool car for cruising around. It is within the sports classic category, and in that category, it does not really do anything for it. But yeah, it's not really awesome for that much more. I would have liked to see a spoiler option for this car, and everybody was giving me shit for saying that. What I meant by a spoiler option is like the tiniest lip spoiler, an antenna, something that would be in the spoiler category so that this thing would get a downforce bonus. I don't mean to put like a wing on it or something stupid like that. But everybody gave me shit about that, but that's not what I meant. Anyways, yeah, it's cool for cruising around. It doesn't have that much in the way of customization, which is also a little disappointing in my opinion, but it's a decent enough car. For $1.5 mil, you kind of can't go wrong with it, sort of thing. At number 7, we have the Vapid Dominator FX, costing $1,550,000, and this thing was slightly underwhelming to me. It basically felt like a reskinned, slower Dominator ASP with, you know, some different customization. It does have, you know, a decent amount of customization, I would say, although I would have liked to see more. And something that a lot of people have been saying to me is that they wish that Rockstar made a different generation of the Fox Body Mustang instead of this one. I think this is the pre-facelift, or maybe this is the post-facelift, but everybody was asking for the other one in my comments section, and seeing the two, I do agree. I think that this should have been the other version of the Fox Body Mustang. It does have pretty decent performance. It's not going to be the greatest muscle car ever. In fact, it's not really going to do anything for the muscle category because the Dominator GT is kind of insane now and does really well on track. So overall, I'd say this thing is slightly underwhelming, but for the price of $1,550,000, it's kind of okay. You know, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Next up, we have the overflawed Pipistrello, costing $2,950,000, and this thing is kind of a mid supercar. It is the typical electric junk that we usually get out of an electric supercar in GTA. I really wish that we would have got something other than the Pipistrello. I feel like nobody wanted this car, nobody asked for this car. It's like kind of cool looking, and the customization options, I will say, are pretty awesome, but a lot of it is really recycled. Like the spoiler options for this car, you can find them on cars like the Zentorno, for example, as well as many other cars, like the Entity MT comes to mind as well. There's nothing too special about the Pipistrello. And then you also can find out too that if you put a spoiler option on this car, I believe it actually removes the downforce bonus that the car has by default because it's broken, and the stock spoiler is really ugly, so spoiler options don't do anything, which don't help to make this car any better. It is kind of weird though, because this thing has an engine upgrade as well as turbo, which I feel like was a mistake on Rockstar's part, but the turbo upgrade really doesn't feel like it does much of anything, so it's quite an odd car. The customization is cool, but also recycled. And for $2,950,000, I just feel like this thing is kind of a ripoff. It doesn't even break top 10 fastest supercars in the game. And honestly, I would place it more like outside of the top 15, to be completely honest. Like, it doesn't have the top speed to keep up with a lot of other cars. And if you take it into like stunt racing and stuff like that, you're going to get walked by pretty much everything in the Pipistrello, which is super unfortunate, but it is what it is. Rockstar, next time around, let's get something with an actual engine going, please. That would be really cool. Next up at number 5, we do have a really cool car, and this is, of course, the Benefactor Vorschlaghammer, or Vorschlaghammer, however you want to say it. The Germans be correcting me in the comment section all day long, so I'm not even, you know, whatever. It goes for $1,790,000, and for that price, I feel like you are actually getting a very, very cool car with some decent customization. It's not the best customization. I feel like there's actually a lot left that I would have liked to see with this vehicle, but you know, I can kind of forgive it because it's based off the Hammer, which is really cool. It also gets access to drift tuning, which is pretty neat too. And it is the final drift tuning vehicle from this last DLC, which is pretty cool. So, you know, it's nice to get a new drift tuning car. It's a 4-door. It's got, you know, decent enough customization. It looks pretty good. The performance is all right. I think it's just generally a pretty awesome car, and I'm not, you know, upset about paying the nearly $1.8 million for it. The performance though, like if you're looking for pure performance, you might be a little bit disappointed by this car, but I still think that the cool factor of it and the drift tuning makes it a lot, you know, better than it really is in actuality. At number 4, we have the Anis Euros X32 costing $1,499,000, and this is the new fastest coupe in the game when you apply HSW to it. Now, if you don't have HSW on it, it's still pretty darn quick. It's like top 3 easily, but with HSW on it, this thing smokes everything else in the coupes category. It destroys the Fathom FR36 that recently just took over as the fastest coupe in the game, and it beats it by, you know, a long shot. So it's a really, really good car. Unfortunately, the customization of this thing felt really lackluster to me. I was not really a fan of it. The spoiler options in particular stood out to me as just being not good. I wish that we got like a ducktail or something for this thing, but no, we got like some pretty big spoilers that I wasn't too keen on. So kind of a shame, but it is still a pretty cool vehicle, and it certainly is a very good performing one, especially for the coupes category. At number 3, we got the Enis Paragon S, costing $2,010,000, and this thing is Imani Tech capable and does have the armor plating upgrade available for it, meaning that it placed pretty well on this list. It's also one of the faster sports cars in GTA Online, being easily within the top 10. It's not really fast enough to dethrone things like the Italia GTO or the Panaud Le Carouse, but it's more of a middle of the pack, you know, down there with maybe the Ocelot Pariah, Grotti RSX, stuff like that. Still pretty quick, but not quick enough to be, you know, the best car in the sports category. Being that it has the Imani Tech, it certainly placed better than it otherwise would have, but it's kind of the same as a lot of the other Imani Tech cars in GTA Online. Similar to the Bravado Buffalo STX, except it does not have the bullet resistant windows, and it also doesn't have the front mounted machine guns. Other than that, they're pretty similar kind of ish, but certainly not the best car from the DLC in my opinion. Still cool to get it though. I think it's a, you know, neat enough car. At number 2, we have the Canis Castigator, costing $1,650,000, and this is the new fastest SUV in GTA Online on last gen, and it is arguably faster than the Pfister Astron Custom and Astron Custom with HSW on new gen platforms. Depending on the circuit that you're going to be racing on, the Canis Castigator may actually outperform those vehicles, even with HSW, which is pretty crazy. This thing is actually stupidly fast. It's very, very quick in a straight line. It smokes the other 2 fastest cars in the category with the Tauros as well as the Galifanter Baller STD. This thing is stupid fast, and the handling is also insane. I think a large part of this thing's success comes from the fact that it is absolutely tiny. It is a very, very small vehicle. The customization's also pretty okay too, and overall I do definitely feel like this thing is deserving of the number 2 spot on this list. The Canis Castigator is really, really awesome, and especially for only $1,650,000, I think you're kind of getting a steal with this vehicle. But of course, at number 1, we have the Ubermacht Niobe, costing $1,880,000. This is the new fastest sports car in GTA Online, and it has an HSW upgrade that makes it even faster. This thing with HSW is crazy. Basically, no other cars in the game can touch this thing on a racetrack. It would smoke a weaponized Ignis on a racetrack, which is crazy, with full HSW, by the way. It's really, really quick. It has a really, really good top speed, close to 160 miles per hour. The customization is also pretty awesome, and the realism factor of this vehicle is kind of off the charts in terms of looks, at least. In terms of performance, it's absolutely, like, I don't know why they made a BMW i8 this fast, but they sure did, and it smokes everything in the sports category, and in fact it would smoke the majority of the supercars category as well if you could race sports cars with supercars, which is crazy to think about. The Niobe's super sick. It's definitely worth buying, especially if you have HSW on your platform, but even if you don't, it's still worth it. For under $2 million, you literally cannot go wrong with this car. So there you have it, guys. That has been it for my ranking of every bottom dollar bounties DLC vehicle in GTA Online. Let me know what you thought of my list in the comment section down below. Tell me that I'm right, you know, because obviously I am. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, dislike if you didn't, of course. Consider subscribing, comment a 7 if you made it to the end, and I will see you guys in the next one. Until then, take care. Peace.